Hey, what's up everybody? My name's Forrest. I'm going to be taking you through an all-level sequence today, focused on mobility, but there's going to be a little bit of strength involved too. So I recommend grabbing a couple props here. So if you want to grab a pair of blocks or something that resembles blocks maybe, or a blanket or a bolster, that might be great to have nearby just in case you will need that throughout your practice. Let's go ahead and meet on the mat, on our backs in our starting posture for centering. Now you can take Shavasana or corpse pose, which is extending the body completely onto the floor, arms resting long, same with the legs. If that's a little bit too much on your low back, you can bend your knees, place the soles of the feet together, or not together, on the floor, and let your knees rest in towards one another. The next thing is where you rest your soles of the feet together, knees out wide. This is a mild back bend, but a not so mild hip opener, so keep that in mind if this is the option you choose. If you need to place something underneath those thighs, props or fists even do, to help reduce the intensity into the hip joint, I highly recommend doing that. Arms can be wherever's comfortable, reaching out, overhead. If you want to place the left hand on the chest, right hand on the belly for your breath awareness, go ahead and do that. Find a comfortable spot and settle in for about the next 2 minutes. We're going to take the next 2 minutes or so to center and become aware of the breath. Let's go ahead and let the eyelids soften. Start to take your focus to the breath. And go ahead and set everything off to the side that doesn't really help you out right now in this yoga sequence. Your minds might be pretty full at the moment. I can totally relate, but now is an opportunity where that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. We can set everything off to the side, focus on our breath, focus on our body and our thoughts. And your mind is bound to go off track, so it's bound to think of other things that have nothing to do with yoga right now. But that's okay. Just come back to your breath awareness. And as you're locked in on the breath, it's pretty hard, pretty challenging for your mind to fill the space with other random things. So don't be down on yourself if that's the case. If you start to think of other things, if your focus gets lost, just reestablish your focus on the breath and get used to building that as a skill. A skill that helps you focus on what you want to focus on. Let these cycles of breathing be relatively natural here, so not adding too much structure or rigidity to it, but just finding some ease here. And the next breath or two, you're going to bring the hands to the outside of the knees if your knees were out wide, or wherever you're at. You start to bring the knees in towards the chest here. You start to bring the knees in, start to add a little bit of movement that helps with your body to find more comfort. So maybe some shifting side to side or moving your knees out in circles away from each other. Now let's keep the right knee in, extend the left leg long. Go ahead and take both hands, interlace on the right shin, and start to pull your right thigh towards your ribs. And as you do that, we'll add a little bit of movement here, either moving that knee in circles, out and away, bring it back to the center, back to the starting point, or shifting side to side with that knee. Just a few seconds here, about 10. We're going to take this right knee into a spinal twist. So we're going to twist off to our left side. Go ahead and guide that right knee over towards the left side. Reach your right arm off to the right. You can take your eyes over that right shoulder, and we'll be here just for about 30 seconds. Easing into the breath. I know the twist sometimes can restrict how deep our breath can go, but just let your body and your breath find ease in this posture as best you can. Next, inhale. Start to bring your knee back to the center. Lengthen that leg back onto your mat. Pull the left knee into the chest. Same thing for this side. You're going to draw that knee towards your ribs. And then start to add some movement, either circles or shifting that knee side to side. Start to take this knee into your spinal twist. So take it over to your right side as you extend the left arm long. Taking your eyes over that left shoulder if that's comfortable, or towards the ceiling. It doesn't really matter. But again, find ease in this twist and let your breath be easy. Inhale, bring that knee back to the center. Let's pull both knees into the chest here for a moment. And then extend your legs long towards the ceiling. So we're going to start to fire up our quads as we extend and lengthen our hamstrings, as well as our low belly, abdominal muscles, and our hip flexors. And so you can point or flex the feet, whatever works. Now, you might not necessarily have your feet over your hips if your hamstrings are tight. Well, that's the idea, is to work your legs to stack over the hips eventually. But no big deal. It just might be a little bit more challenging on the hip flexors and core muscles if that's the case. The stronger they get, they can help They can help stack the legs over the hips eventually, even with some hamstring tightness. So go ahead and start to reach your arms out to the sides. Really press your low back into the floor as you draw your low belly in towards your spine. We're going to keep holding this for another 10 seconds. Isometric contraction, but ease in the breath. Start to bend your knees, but keep your thighs where they are. And if you did have your knees a little bit more forward, go ahead and stack them over the hips now. And bring your knees together to touch, squeeze the feet together, and you're going to shift your knees about 6 to 8 inches off to the right side. Use those core muscles, bring yourself back to the center, and then off to the left side. Keep squeezing your knees together for this. Back to the center, and if you're feeling it, you can bring your knees a little farther over towards the right. Back to the center, and then to the left side. One more time each side. A couple inches off to the right side. Back to the center. Same thing to the left. And back to the center. Good. Pull both knees into the chest. Let your hands place on top of the shins. Let your legs relax a little bit there. I know those hip flexors might be yelling at you a little bit, especially if you are a little tight on those hamstrings. Next thing, we're going to do a low boat. Transition into it. So lengthen your legs up towards the ceiling. Let your arms come by your sides. Head and shoulder blades lift. Reach your chin up toward the ceiling. The most important part is to keep your low back on the floor. throughout this here. So we're going to start to lower your heels towards the mat. And you want to find a stopping point right before your low back lifts. So if this were to be the point where my low back lifted, I'm bringing my feet here and maintain that posture for the next, 20 seconds or so. But if you want to, you can take your heels a little bit lower. Draw your belly in. Keep holding. Good. Last 4, 3, 2, 1. Lengthen your legs up towards the ceiling. Draw them in towards the spine or towards the belly, towards the chest, and then let your arms wrap around those shins. Take a moment to neutralize. We're going to start to add some forward rocking here, rocking along those spinal muscles. So go ahead and make your way forward and backwards up to 6 times. 6, 8, doesn't have to be a magic number there. And make your way onto your hands and knees now. Tabletop posture. Once you have your shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees, start to add some cat and cows. So inhale, head and chest lift, belly drops, pelvis tilts. Exhale, round the spine, chin to the chest. Back into that cow, inhaling. Exhaling into that cat, rounded spine. Feel free to keep on going just like this. Or if you want to add a little bit of extra movement that feels nice to you, rotation through, just articulation of the spine, moving it in whichever way feels best to you. Go ahead and do that, please. Maybe shifting back towards child's pose. Shifting up through your cat, inhaling into your cow. Okay, we'll start to come to stillness here. So next inhale, or wherever you're at, exhaling, we'll make your way towards a neutral spine. Go and shift your left knee into the middle of your mat. Extend your right leg long, and then draw your belly in towards your spine. Press the ground away. Start to lift your right leg up. We'll go ahead and extend the left arm towards the front, bicep by the ear. Keep holding this. We're going to start to implement a little back bend here. So start to reach your left hand up, right heel to follow. Look up through those fingers. Exhale everything into the center. Bend that elbow and your knee. Light touch. Left hand to the floor. Right leg extends out to the side. Now, from here, you're going to walk your hands up to the shins, these things, the hips, and go ahead and extend your left arm towards the ceiling. I'm all mixed up right now. Left arm towards the ceiling, really pressing through that left knee, squeeze that left glute, and then hinge towards the right side. Right hand can rest on the thigh, coming towards the calf or the foot. Next inhale, come back to the center. Both hands to the floor. Don't move this right leg where it's at. Plant your left hand pretty much in line with the left knee. Inhale, reach your right arm towards the sky. Exhale, go ahead and thread that arm underneath the left, reaching over towards the left side. Bring the head to the floor or a pillow that feels nice. And then go ahead and reach that left arm overhead wherever it works. Maybe find a half bind here. Go ahead and start to release that. Left hand comes back to where it's at or where it was. Right hand underneath the shoulder. Keep your right leg extended. We're going to inhale into a cow posture. Exhale around the spine. 2 more total. Inhale into the cow. You may not get as much movement here as you would with your knees and legs symmetrical, but no big deal. Exhale around it. 1 more. Inhale. Find that spinal extension. Exhale around it. Go ahead and start to lift your right leg up and sweep it all the way. Some sneaky strength right here. Sneak it all the way towards the left side. Right toes will touch. Look over your left shoulder towards your right toes. Your right toes will be about a foot off the left side of your mat. Next inhale, come back with that right knee. Place it in the center of your mat. Extend the left leg long, tuck the toes, draw your belly in towards your spine. Go ahead and lift that left heel up, and right arm can extend. Bicep by the ear. Keep drawing the belly in. Engage through the core. Start to lift your right hand, left heel to follow. Maybe look through those fingers. Next, exhale. Knee to elbow underneath the body. Little rounding here. Right hand to the floor. Left leg comes off to the side of your mat. Once it's grounded, you can walk your hands back to come to those hips. Good. And right hand reaches towards the ceiling. Press down through that right knee, squeeze the right glute, and let your body lean towards the left side. Left hand can slide down the leg. Inhale, back to neutral. Exhale, bring the hands to the floor. Don't do anything with that left leg. Planting into your right hand. Inhale, reach it left arm up. Exhale, slide that left arm through into your twist. Reaching it lots over to the left side. Walking your right hand forward, perhaps. Or bring your right hand to find that left hip crease, left pocket for a half bind. Inhale, untwist. Left hand comes to the floor, as well as the right hand. We'll come into those cat-cows. Inhaling into your spinal extension. Exhale, round the spine. Number 2 here. Last one. Time for that sneaky strength. Press into the ground. Lift your left leg up. And start to cross it all the way over towards the right side. Eventually, those toes will touch down about a foot off your mat. Look over your right shoulder towards the toes. Next inhale, start to lift that left leg. Left knee comes next to the right knee. Walk your knees back just a little bit here. And we're going to tuck our toes and then lift the knees up into a plank pose. Go ahead and shift your hips up and back to a downward facing dog. So bend into the knees as much as you need to. Find length from your fingers all the way to your hips. That's the most important part right now, is finding length in the spine. Length in the legs will come eventually through practice and time. Everybody start to bend the knees, look forward, and then take it to the top. Step it into your first standing forward fold. Very generous bend in those knees. As you allow the torso to rest over your thighs, your forward fold can literally be looking like this if you need it to. You know, if you have tight hamstrings or low back muscles, bend those knees as much as you need to. And we're still folding forward no matter what. And we're going to inhale, soften those knees, sink the hips down a little bit, and then come to stand. Once we're standing, we'll go ahead and reach your arms up. Go ahead and grab your right wrist with your left index finger and thumb. You can bring your feet a little closer together and press through the ground and take a hinge to the left side. Look towards the right. Come back to the center, release the hands, switch it up. Inhale to find length, exhale to take a hinge to the left. Inhale back to the center. Go and interlace both of your hands together except for that index finger and thumb. Squeeze the glutes, start to press your hips forward as you reach your arms back, chest forward, 2. Good. Everybody start to bring your hands down towards the floor. We're going to step the left foot back And bring the left knee down to the mat, into this lunge. So now might be a great opportunity for you to find your blocks and place them on the outsides of the foot. So either your hands are framing the foot or you're using blocks here. And we're going to take this from a low lunge or from this lunge posture and move it towards a half split. But for this first lunge, really start to engage, drive the hips forward, use your left glute. I want these to be pretty active as you transition from your lunge to half splits. These are an active variation. And I'll explain that here more. But right now, keep focus on that left hip to drive the hips forward. Find length in your spine. Now, to keep this active as we shift towards our half splits, you're going to start to drive your right heel into the floor as you shift your hips back. So keep driving that heel as if you want to scoop your foot forward. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And if it does, just readjust. But we're shifting from here, driving that heel into the mat all the way to get that left hip stacking over our left knee, finding extension in our right leg. Inhale, drive that heel down into the floor as you shift forward. Just keep squeezing that left glute until you get to that starting point. 2 more just like that. Exhale, shift back, drive that heel into the floor. Strong contraction in that hamstring here. So we are strengthening the hamstring as well as finding an end range of motion. Inhale, shift forward, drive the heel into the floor. Squeeze the glute to help drive the hips forward. Exhale, shift back. Inhale, shift forward. And we're going to hold this one for a total of 30 seconds. We're going to contract that left glute to help drive the hips forward for 10 seconds, and then be nice and passive for the remaining 20 seconds. So go ahead, get yourself ready. I'm going to start the clock in 3, 2, 1. Left engaged, left glute engaged, lots, help drive the hips. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just relax and let this be passive. Just letting our hips melt forward and towards the mat. Good. Start to shift the hips back. We're going to do the same thing on that half splits, or to the half splits. So contracting hard for 10 seconds and then relaxing easily for 20. So how we do this, we're going to have a slight bend in that knee, drive the heel into the floor, and you can really fold over or keep your body or torso upright for these. The main thing is just really focus on the hamstring here. So we'll start in 3, 2, 1. Press it in, engage for 10. 5, and soften into your half splits. Now if you want to take this passive variation a little bit more forward, that might feel nice. The next inhale, we'll start to shift forward. Go ahead and step your left foot up to the top into a forward fold. Just notice how that right leg feels compared to the left side. And let's go ahead and bend the knees, sink the hips, reach your arms up on the inhale. We're going to interlace those hands except for the index finger and thumb. Squeeze the glutes, drive the hips forward. Exhale, hands come down through the center. And we're going to take a fold, step your right foot back. Right knee comes down to the floor. Grab your blocks if you're using them. Then we'll first find that lunge here. So drive the hips forward and down. Squeeze that right glute so you can find a little bit of length in your spine. I won't spend as much time explaining everything on this side as I did on the other side, but we're going to implement that dynamic movement now. Driving the heel into the floor, keeping that right glute engaged as you do so, shifting back into half splits. So ready? 3 total. Drive that heel into the floor, start to shift your hips back, really engage those hamstrings. If you need to adjust your stance, sometimes that needs to be done, so go ahead and do that. Shift forward as you inhale, drive the heel into the floor, squeeze that right glute. Exhale, shift back, heel into the mat. Shift forward, strong contraction. Second one here. And exhale, shift back. Inhale, bring it forward. Good. All right, so 30 seconds, strong glute contraction, driving the hips forward. Ready? And engage for 10. And relax into that passive 20-second stretch. Just being a little bit less engaged there. Still allowing the hips to fall forward and down though. Let your next exhale take your hips back. Lengthen that left leg long. Point your toes up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to find that active half splits for 10 seconds and then passive 20. Start to drive that heel into the floor, activate, and we'll start the clock now for 10. And soften into your passive stretch. Good. Start to shift forward. We'll go ahead and step your right foot up to the top. Standing forward fold. We'll just notice how those legs feel. And start to bend your knees, sink your hips, reach your arms up, interlace those fingers, find full extension through the body, squeeze the squeeze the glutes as the hips go forward. Arms go back, chest reaches up and forward. Exhale. Everybody start to bring your hands to the chest. Now we're going to step our right foot back, bring our hands to the inside of the left foot. You can heel toe that left foot a little wider and bring your right knee to the floor. We're going to spend about 2 minutes here in our lizard lunge. And so there's a handful of things you can do here. You can walk the hands forward from this variation. If you want more rounding in the spine, feel free to absolutely stay like this with your spinal extension. You can bring the forearms to the floor if that feels nice. My personal favorite thing to do here is come onto the outer edge of that left foot and then drive that left knee away from here. And then sometimes, if it's accessible, I like reaching back for that foot bind. Find whatever works for you, and we'll maintain this posture. If you do have that foot bind, there's a handful of things you can work with. You can work with driving the foot into the hands to create more quad activation, quad strengthening. Or if you want to stretch the quads a little bit more, draw the heel towards the glute. Also, pressing the foot into the hand is a nice opportunity to open up into the neck and shoulder. Slowly start to release your bind if you have it, and everybody start to walk your hands back to be underneath the shoulders. We're going to plant our feet and then walk our hands to the center and then come into a wide-legged forward fold. And so this might be relatively intense at the beginning. If you need to, you can come to stand. That's too much for those hamstrings. Come to stand. And then reestablish your fold with some support, whether it be blocks or a chair or something like that. If you can, touch the ground comfortably. Just spend a few breaths here, pressing into the outer edges of the feet, but at the same time, maintaining contact with the balls of the feet and all the way through the big toe pads. Next inhale, start to make your way to a halfway lift, and we're going to walk our hands to the back of the mat to voila, make our way into lizard lunge behind us. So bring that left knee onto the floor. You can find whatever variation you're working into on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and start to come onto the outer edge of my right foot, right hand onto the knee, and then work into that bind, hand and foot. Find your variation. If you feel like moving around, go ahead and move around. You don't have to stay completely still like a statue throughout the duration of the hold. Sometimes you can explore and find some interesting spots that you didn't know felt that way. Like, oh my gosh, my hips feel that way in this stretch. Who would have thought? Until, you start exploring, and then you'll find it. Start to release that foot if you had it bound. And then everybody walk your hands to be underneath the shoulders, and then tuck the toes. Walk your hands to the center, back into that wide leg forward fold. This time we're going to take a lateral bend here. So if you want to, if you're using blocks or a chair or something like that for the sake of your hamstrings, go ahead and bring that object over towards your left foot. Place it roughly inside of the left foot or lined up on top. Depends really on your torso length and arm length. And so you're going to find contact with that. We're going to take a lateral bend here, and with your hands on either the floor, the block, or a chair, start to drive your chest down towards the mat. The idea is to look for length coming from our right hip through our right fingers as well. So if you have the floor, sometimes it's nice to continue crawling that hand away towards the left side. Next inhale, come back to the center. Exhale, we'll take it off to the opposite side. Inhale back to the center. We'll keep a little halfway lift right here. Everybody bring your hands to the hips. We're going to add some strengthening to our hamstrings and core. So slight knee bend, bring the hands to the hips, start to come to rise all the way up to stand. Good. Go and step to the top. Slide your props off to the side if you had any. And then take your feet about shoulder width distance apart. We're going to bend our arms and just do a little twisting here. As you come to the left, right heel lifts. Come to the right, left heel lifts. Just like so. Good. Okay, from here, we're going to make our way onto our shins. Now, there's a somewhat fun way to do this, coming into a toe balance. So if you are on your mat, go ahead and take a few steps back so we have space to bring our knees to the floor. If this is too much for you, go ahead and just find your way to stand onto the shins. We're going to do a little strengthening for our quads here. But to get down there, if you want to try out the toe balance entrance, Bring your hands to heart center. Let your elbows be as high as your wrists for active purposes. Press your hands together. Lift your heels up. Now start to bend your knees. Keep your straight spine as you lower down, all the way to rest the hips onto the heels. Good. And now we're going to slowly start to reach your knees forward. Let them come onto the floor. Untuck the toes. And then we'll all meet like this. Neutral hips, draw your belly in toward your spine, point your tailbone down. You can bring your hands to heart center or reach them forward. We're going to do something called reverse Nordic curls. They're pretty intense onto our quads, hip flexors, and some to our core. So just do your best. Reach your arms forward or find your hand variation. And you're going to start to lean back. Nothing changes right here in this straight line. You're going to lean, 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 lean. Get to that point where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can make my way back, and then make your way back. We're going to do 4 more of those. Slowly start to lower and lift. That's 2. Lower. Lift for 3. Lower. Lift for 4. Good, last one. And lift for 5. Good. So now we're going to find a stretch for those quads. Highly recommend grabbing a block or something along those lines. We're going to bring the knees together. Place a block in between those ankles and let your hips rest onto that block. For some of you, this might be nothing as far as a stretch into the quads. For some of you, other people, this might be everything as far as a quad stretch. So if this is too much, you can stack the block up to become higher. You can sit on something a little bit easier going, like a bolster or a blanket. You can do the old place the bolster on the Achilles heel maneuver as you sit your hips onto the bolster. But no matter where you're at, just start to find some ease in the breath especially. For those of you who are searching for some more sensation in this, you can absolutely start to walk your hands back. The idea is to not crunch into the low back for the sake of finding depth in this posture. Good. Start to walk your hands back up. Come onto your side, onto a side of your hip. Good. And then go ahead and find your legs wide onto your mat or wherever it's comfortable. Absolutely recommend sitting on top of something like a bolster or a blanket. I personally am going to prop up onto a blanket and then use my bolster as a little ramp here. We're going to keep this forward fold for just 2 minutes. So find something to help support you and then make your way into your forward fold. You can find some length on your inhale and then exhale. Make your way to your hip flexion. It's really important for the remainder of the practice, and really for the whole practice, to continue to find that breath awareness and focus. And then also, as we transition towards Shavasana, continue Next inhale, start to find length in your spine. Lift your torso up. If you propped yourself up, go ahead and set those off to the side. And go ahead and make your way onto your back. And place the soles of the feet onto the floor, about as wide as your mat. And let your arms reach out to the side or have them bent in your goalpost shape. And we're going to come into some spinal twisting here, dynamic movement with the breath. As you exhale, let your knees fall off to the right side. You can look over towards the left. Inhale back to the center. Exhale, knees opposite side, eyes as well. Inhale back up. Look out for those props getting in your route. Exhale to the side. Inhale, center. Exhale to the opposite side. A couple more just like that. Move with you and your breath. And let your knees come back to the center on your next inhale. Draw your knees into your chest. Wrap your arms around the shins. Let your head and shoulder blades lift. Make a tiny shape with the body. And go ahead and expand into your final resting shape. Please prop yourself up. Place something underneath the knees if that feels nice or sounds nice. Place something underneath the head to support your head during your Shavasana. Once you're situated, start to really pay attention to the muscles in the body and observe. Notice where areas of tightness or stiffness or tension might be still working. Do your best to soften. And as the eyes are closed, let your awareness come to the breath. And remember, if your awareness and focus travels from the breath at any time throughout the Shavasana, just come back to your breath. If you have the time, I highly encourage you to stay here for up to 10 minutes as you rest and digest your practice. As always, thanks for joining me in your practice. Honor your inner strength and wisdom, peace and gratitude. Namaste.